today's session we look at using ARUtils for data consistency. Specifically, we're looking at the various import-export routines that work with Excel. The basic functionality is to export data from the project into Excel and make some changes and then import that data to update your project. This has many benefits as far as ease of update and speed of update. So let's have a look at a few of the routines in ARUtils for data consistency. So you'll find the utilities for import-export under the import-export pull-down. So we've got stuff for updating categories, i.e. the object styles. We can also do it for materials, for line patterns, fill patterns, walls, rooms, sheets, views, and then there's the anything import-export. So that pretty much lets you pick any category of items for importing, exporting. Now, another one is the formatted import-export. This actually produces the pretty sheets, the highly detailed presentation type stuff that you might want in Excel. So let's have a look at a fairly simple one first, just the category import-export. Now, most of these import-export routines follow a fairly similar format. There's a file that we can define, and that contains both the import and export data. And if we want to browse for that, we can just browse for that file or create it as required. So we can also edit that file if we've already done the export as such. So let's say at this point we're going to export our object styles. So we're instantly brought into an Excel sheet, and in this case it relates to object styles, and with this particular export we need to basically have our category, our subcategory, RGB values, projection weight, cut weights, and the material. And we have the option of deleting various items. If we find that a particular category has a -1 value in the delete column, it means that basically that is a system subcategory or category, and we're not actually able to delete that item. So in any case, what we could do is simply set all of our values to project the same. So this will make it fairly easy to see that how this process works. So we'll just set the cut weight to 6 and 6. We'll take all of these. Okay, so save that off, close out of the file, and at this point we could say, for example, that we just want to update existing items. So it won't create new subcategories. So if we'd gone into another project and there were subcategories that didn't exist in that project, we could say add new items and it would add all of those subcategories. We could also say delete any items that we've indicated need to be deleted. So we'll just say process, we then get up a log of what's taken place. So as you can see, now that we've applied those changes, our view has updated and we have a much more colourful plan. So we'll just undo that because we don't really want to keep working on that. Now, some of the import-export commands are quite strict about the columns that exist within those Excel files. In those ones, you won't be able to delete any of the columns. Now, as I said, most of these follow very similar patterns, so you can see that we've basically got the file that we want to use, and with walls we have a bit more detail about what we can export, but the form is very much the same. We export information out, modify it using Excel to edit the file, and then we update the information back in our project using the process button. In this instance though, we're going to look at the anything import-export routine, which has a few more options and gives you a bit more control about what you're doing. Okay, so this form has more fields in it and allows you to do interesting and repeatable things. So once again, we've got a file that we're going to write out to, and we've got an auto overwrite feature which will automatically overwrite that file. So if we're just using it as a temporary store to export out data, this makes it nice and easy. It's worth noting that if we don't have overwrite turned on, then information that we export will in fact come out and be appended to our current file. So if we have a quick look at that file, we'll see that we can in fact have multiple heading lines. So here we've got a unique ID line, and here we've got a line that has the following information done using names. So we can have a whole heap of these things listed in this file. Alternatively, in it we'll delete that current Excel file and we start with a clean file. We also have the ability to use a defined export. So we've actually got a number of items that we've defined, and if we pick one of those, then it will set all of these settings and set it to the doors category. If I say furniture manufacturer, then you can see that we've got furniture, and it will pick the appropriate things related to that. So what we'll do now is define a new one. So we want to export out information about doors. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is pick the categories that we want exported, and at the moment you can see that it's just rooms. If we want to make sure that we don't have any selected, we can right click and say remove all. Alright, so we'll now go up to doors, and we have an option to export out instances, so each instance of a door within a project, or we can export out types. So we're going to do types in this case. So the other option that you may have noticed is now we have the option of using names. Typically when we export something out, items will be written out using the GUID, or Global Unique Identifier. This ensures that a specific item is picked up, and if that GUID varies from project to project, which is quite likely, the export that we're using will only work in this project. By ticking the Use Names option, it will use the family name and the type name of each item within the family to pick up on particular types. This makes it transportable between projects, and that's a very useful feature, specifically for type marks. If you want to ensure that all doors of a particular type have DT1 or DT double or some other thing, you can use this export method so that in all your projects you can just load this up and all the doors will have door type marks that are identical. Okay, so in our first case we'll say we just want to use the GUID option. So the other thing that we can now do is say if we had multiple categories selected, we could say only export out the common parameters. So because we've only got one category selected, that's not really relevant. But if we had doors and windows, by ticking this, parameters that don't exist in both will not be exported out. We also have an option to select parameters. So rather than just getting all parameters written out for doors, we can actually pick parameters that are of concern in this case, and it enables us to do a much faster export and a much faster import. We can also opt to weed out values which can't be written to. So values that we can't actually import and affect the family. So we can tick that, and if we had multiple categories, we could once again actually separate out each category into its own specific category groups. You can actually import information across multiple categories, and the routine will be able to handle that. So the last option is the save option here, and if we tick that, the definition that we've got will be saved out to our exports file, and it will be then available for future use. So we'll tick the save, and we'll say at this point export types. Alright, because we had pick parameters ticked, it's now presented us with a list of available parameters. So we might want to add in the fire rating and the height for these door types. So remember, we're doing types at this point. Now, if there's a parameter missing from this list that you thought would be there, it may be that it's an instance parameter, and therefore you would have to update it by doing an export of instances. So we'll say, okay, we're happy with that list of parameters, and we'll call it export door types fire rating, even though it's got more than just that in it. Okay, so that has now been exported. You can see that we've got a new defined export here, which is the name we gave it. And if we click to edit, and you'll see that we've now got all of those items exported out. We've got our unique ID, so this makes it specific to this particular project. Now if we wanted to update the description for all of our doors, we can type that value in, and we're just going to set all of them to that, and we're going to set our fire rating to all be 1 hour. So we'll now save that off. We'll set that to 30 minutes. So you can put in whatever's appropriate to the parameter for Revit, and you'll notice that our type mark is actually set to a fairly ordinary item. We'll just say DT1 and DT2. So we'll now have all of those set. So we save the file off, and gives us a chance to call it something else. We'll just keep using it the same name, and we'll close that. And so now that we've exported, edited, the last thing we want to do is import those new values. So it's purely going by what's in this file. None of this other stuff is relevant once we do an import. Alright, and you can see that it's very quick to update all this information. And we'll just go OK, exit out of this, and okay, so now that we've imported that information and updated our door definitions, just click on a door, go edit type, and down here in the identity data you'll see that we've got a 1 hour fire rating and a door type 4. If I pick another, we'll see that it's door type 2 but also 1 hour. So very quickly and easily updated the types within our project. Okay, so let's look at exporting out instance information. So once we have instances selected, we're no longer able to use names because each instance doesn't really have a name. We do, however, get a number of other options. So we're able to actually pick items that we want to be exported out. And this will present us with a list of the family names and types that we can export out. We also have the option of exporting out the type information. So because we're doing an instance, there's a related type. We can also export out the related host information. So that would be a wall instance in this case. And we can also export out the host type information. I'm going to tick that in this case because I want to see if my fire rated doors are actually in a fire rated wall. So we'll just hit export instances. We'll pick all of these doors and we'll now say, alright, we want the host fire rating. Alright, and if we go to edit, we now have our various door instances, and it shows us that, alright, most of our fire rated doors are in fact in fire rated walls, but what we could do is say check this door for fire rated wall. So we'll now save this off, close out of it, and we'll say import. Alright, so we've updated comments for a number of items, and we could in fact now use a filter to show us where those doors exist. Okay, so now that we've set parameters for our doors, we want to be able to quickly find those doors. So using another utility in ARUtils, quick select, we don't want a filter on the current selection set, so we'll say no to filter on the entire project. And we've got a previous definition, doors with an area greater than 5 square meters. If we just go down here to comments, you'll see that we've got check this door for fire rated wall comment. So we'll say that, we'll untick that, we'll say select. Alright, so it doesn't appear as though those doors are actually at this level, so we might need to do a bit more digging. So we'll use the same command again, but we'll say 3D isolate them. So we'll say select, and you'll see now that we've got our items selected, and if we rotate the box, you can see where these doors are. Perhaps we'll go into a wireframe mode. So we could now look at those particular walls and pick this wall to be a fire rated wall. So very quickly we've sorted out the issue with these doors. Okay, so hopefully that gives you enough of an idea about using some of the features of the import-export anything routine. Definitely a great time saver, and the better you understand it, the easier you'll find it to improve your workflows and achieve the results you're after quickly. Thank you.